Believe it or not, over 55 million meetings are held daily across the globe. That's a whole lot of potential for greatness, or a whole lot of wasted time. Here's the hard truth. Up to 70% of meetings are considered unproductive by the people who attend them. Be honest, when was the last time you sent an email in a meeting? And how often have you left a meeting and thought, well, that could have gone better? On Bad Meetings Podcast, we're not here to judge. We're here to embrace the awkward, the weird, the boring, and everything in between when it comes to professional and sometimes not so professional get-togethers. Erika McKellar here, conflict resolution expert. I invite brave souls onto Bad Meetings Podcast to share their stories of meetings gone, well, a little sour. We start by being curious about what happened. We uncover hidden opportunities, and at the end, we finish off with actionable insights on how to have better meetings. The truth is, all conflict has something positive to teach us, if only we're brave enough to explore it. Thanks for listening. Hi, welcome to Bad Meetings Podcast, where we share stories about common and not so common workplace encounters and offer out-of-the-box tips for better meetings at work. Today, we have a very special guest, Genna Kane-Gryziec. Hello.
Hello,
Welcome.
how are you? Thanks for having me.
Hi. Oh, it's so good to have you on. And Genna, we have known each other for over 20 years now, which is crazy to think because I still feel 20 years old.
Likewise.
Right. And I'm so happy to have you on here because really, when I think about my professional journey, Genna, the start of it, you were there. You were coaching me and coaching me along and helping me become the professional that I am today, for good or for better or for worse.
Oh, come on. Don't sell yourself short. You're fabulous.
Oh, thanks, sweetie. Well, Genna, she was my very first manager at a university, my undergrad in San Francisco at a big investment management firm. And we both worked in recruiting and HR together. And since then, Genna has gone on for many decades of talent acquisition work, executive coaching, anything when it comes to people and employee experiences. You are the mentor that I look up to for finding that balance, being your true authentic self, and also just being really good at looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself about what the challenges are, in work. And I think someone told me the other day, we all say, oh, you need to separate work and, and emotions, but I really don't think that's possible. And that's okay because we are who we are and we have our experiences and our emotions and our families and everything that goes on around us. And there's no way we can put that, in a separate box. It's part of who we are. So I want to thank you for showing me that path. And then we can lead into our story today. So on Bad Meetings Podcast, we start with a story always. It doesn't have to be a blockbuster. It doesn't have to be catastrophic. But this one today, it's pretty good. And I think it's something that a lot of our listeners will identify with and have been in situations that are really, really tough like this. These difficult conversations are never easy. But if we follow some really simple rules of humanity,
I know you would think. Yeah.
You would think.
You would think.
So let's jump into it. This is not about me, Genna. You're the hero of the story. Set us up here. Like what happened? And we always ask our guests, share an experience that you feel comfortable with. We never want you to be sharing anything that feels wrong, that feels like you're exposing yourself or anybody else. This is your experience, your emotions, how you think and feel, and then we can break it down together and figure out how we can do things better next time.
Awesome. Thank you for teeing that up. And thank you so much for the introduction and the compliment. I really appreciate it. And like you, to be honest, over the 20 years and it's going to go on for a lifetime for you and I, but over the 20 years that we've known each other, and built, our, relationship and friendship, you have become a mentor to me too, Erika. It goes both ways. So I just think you're just dynamite and I love you to death. And thank you for having me today. So anyways, I wanted to start with that.
I'm going to cry. Whoever's watching on YouTube, they might see it.
But I love you. You know that. That said, let's get to it. Let's jump in. So, I took a lot of time, as you know, we talked briefly beforehand, like what I was thinking and what, I wanted to cover. And this is a very vulnerable, story for sure. But I do think it's important to share these stories. I do think it's important to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a strength. I know that in my heart of hearts, that, and it's okay, and with that said, this was a while back. I'm going to give it to you high level, but something came up where I got a meeting request sent to me by my management, and the title of the meeting really caught me off guard because it came out of the blue. I had no, like, hey, like, here's a heads up, want to let you know I'm going to be putting some time on the calendar. It was just all of a sudden, bam. And it had to do with, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was around expectations. And I've got to tell you, I went into a complete, like, I just started spinning and spiraling with my mind and anxiety and uncertainty and where is this coming from? Because again, there was no indication leading up to this moment that anything was not working right and that my performance wasn't at top level. So, that experience and the way it was handled and way it was delivered just put me into a tailspin. That said, once the meeting did happen, I mean, as you can imagine, it could have gone one of two ways. One, hey, you're doing amazing. Here's some amazing feedback. Keep crushing it, Genna, or it could have been the bad news that you're not, doing as well as you hope you're doing, right? And as it unfolded and the conversation took place, there was feedback shared at top leadership that came downstream, that got put on me, and there was a blame, an accusation that I did amiss for the team. And I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. And it was not well thought out. There wasn't facts. It was all generalities. And it was just the most bizarre, like, exchange that I've ever had with a direct manager. And I, of course, got the defense went up. How can it not? Because I wanted
How
facts.
can it not?
Yeah, I wanted facts.
Especially if it's unexpected and there's nothing leading
there
up
was
to
nothing
it.
leading.
Yeah.
There was no indication. And it was just really, truly so puzzling to me how this feedback, which there may have been some good feedback in there to share, but the way it came out and the approach, it just put me on all, like, my guard was up. I was totally defensive. I wanted facts. I wanted a thorough understanding of how did this get put on me? Why we weren't having a team meeting about this? Because it was clearly a team effort that, just around what this feedback was. It wasn't, one person that played a part, but yet I was the one that got put under the spotlight, that I was the one that created that miss from the team. And so that then also got coupled with, which I couldn't believe, in the same conversation, a add to my roles and responsibilities. There was more responsibilities added to my R&Rs. And then I was given a timeline, a very short, unrealistic timeline to turn things around. All of this in one like breath of this this random meeting that gets scheduled on my calendar to leading into this just opening up a can of worms that I never expected. And I couldn't even believe it. I was blindsided. So, um, that is what I call a very bad meeting and completely unprofessional, inappropriate, and that should never be the way you handle, especially from a management or leadership level, on how you address something that could have been handled so differently, if they had played their cards right. So I just, I honestly, I was flabbergasted and I just completely shut down. The
Yeah.
loyalty, the trust was gone, and there was no coming back from it. And in my case, that was the situation. I never came back from it. I, ended up, of course, doing my, there was some things that I did to work it through for me, but ultimately I transitioned and left the company. So hopefully that helps with what I went through.
I can't blame you, and I think that I know I have. Most of us have had experiences like that where something comes from someone who you have an important relationship with, be it a coworker, be it a boss,
Yeah.
be it a teacher. It could be anything where there is an instance or an encounter that really just completely shakes the whole foundation of that relationship.
Yep.
And it must have been something that was, my guess is, deeply hurtful.
Oh, it questioned my character. It questioned my everything I had put forth, my work product, my dedication, my commitment. There was no question. You couldn't argue that I put in 150%. And I had a great reputation. I built incredible relationships because I mean, Erika, working with me, you know how important relationships are to me. Um,
That's everything.
it's everything.
It's everything.
And
It's
I
what
have
you
always,
taught me from the beginning.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I have always been known for that I create this positive environment. I empower people. I want to learn. I want to inspire and be inspired. And I put all of that energy out into this, into this environment and with this team and with this manager. And it was as if I was in the Twilight Zone. I'm not joking. That's how much it just was so out of it was just out of character, like completely, not only questioning my character, but it was out of character. And it was just the stress that it put on me and my family was I just couldn't even believe it. And that is what happens. That is a result of what happens when, you know, management and leadership approach, things in the wrong way. And there's to me, it was clearly obvious that this person didn't even know the fundamental 101 to managing. Okay. And so that leads to, as you and I know, there was no training, clearly. There was no, coaching. There was just there was none of that. And that's what that person needed
Yeah.
immediately.
And at this point, in the world, we all know that soft skills are probably the hardest skills to master.
100%.
But
I'm
yet
still
we're
learning every
still,
day. Yeah. Yeah.
and if you're not, there's something wrong, right? Because,
Clearly. Yes.
there's so much complexity to it. There's
Yes.
so much that goes into it to be able to, even if, because we can't ever tell what anyone else out of our situation can think, feel, do,
Yes.
control. I mean, they're their own person. So their own story could be a completely different, their what happened could be completely different than ours.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you can't be open to somebody else's, experiences when you're having difficult conversations, because difficult conversations need to happen. We can't have artificial harmony all the time. Sometimes feedback needs to be given, but there are certain rules of engagement. It's what I'm getting from that you believe are core and fundamental to anyone, regardless of your industry, regardless of your position, regardless of your expertise. If you're in a management position where there are people reporting to you, there are some basic fundamentals that need to be learned, followed, and practiced. And I would love to hear what your thoughts are on those fundamentals, because I think everyone will benefit from hearing that.
Oh, well, look, I mean, all the coaching I've done over the years, right? It comes down to, and I realize we're using this quite a bit, especially in today's world and landscape, but it really does it comes down to empathy. It really, really does. That's number one. Having that barometer around empathy is significant. Number two is taking a step back, thinking before you engage, and really being thoughtful. Again, these are things that we're talking a lot about and dissecting, the empathy, being a thought leader, taking a moment to digest information, feedback in this case, that was shared from top level down. And really putting it in a way that is going to be easily digestible when you share the feedback, right? Where guards aren't going up, defense isn't going up, right? There's guardrails that you need to think about, and you need to work within those. And it's just about having that, that thoughtfulness, being empathetic, being compassionate. Now, there could be, and hey, look, it could be some negative feedback you have to share. That's really tough to deliver to someone, right? Especially if it's evidence-based, which that's another thing, is another point in being a manager or a leader. You better have evidence-based. You better have your facts straight, okay? Because in this day and age, people are smart and informed and educated, okay? And you're going to have a person that, probably 9 times out of 10 can stand their ground and start asking questions based on your evidence. So you better be prepared, okay? So there's all of those things I feel like really are the fundamentals. There's other things too. But that's really the foundation.
Not sending an email with a performance review.
Yeah, throwing, just completely.
Sorry, I had to say it. Totally. I'm not trying to be judgy, but that's a no-go right there. But if you do something like that on accident, let's say it's a commute, I live in Sweden and I'm an American, right? And sometimes language barriers and things like that come into play. And something that sounds totally normal, in Swedish will sound really harsh in English. So there's, sometimes those type of things
there's
happen.
The cultural nuances and differences, based on the region of the globe, of course, right? Yeah. And you have to kind of adapt and flex to that. But that's a little different than what we're talking about right here, and that's great to point out, because that's more of a global mindset, okay? This is, bottom line, was handled poorly, unprofessionally, and inappropriately. And it put a fear in
Mm.
me specifically, because that's what we're talking about here. But I can't tell you how many times this goes on in the working world. It's and the fact that managers and leaders get away with it is even worse. Okay? That is a toxic environment, and it is also a clear indication that training isn't happening, executive coaching isn't happening, guidance isn't happening. Okay. And so then you get, these really like cultures crumble as a result.
And
And so
cultures are so fickle in that they take years to
to
build,
build
and
and then
they
one
can
false error
shatter.
in one false move. And it's unbelievable.
Mm.
It's so true. And I experienced that. And it was interesting. So I had an organization, we'll kind of, switch the topic a little bit to the organizational level, right? You and I have talked about this too. Interestingly enough, when that bad meeting got set on my calendar, right? Um, there was a pivotal moment happening at the organizational level as
Of
well.
course there
Of
was.
course,
Yeah.
right? They went
Yeah.
hand in hand. And
The fear travels real quick.
yeah, because, performance wasn't good. The investors were knocking on the door, and pressure was happening. And that pressure just started just going downstream, throughout the organization and just spread like the plague. And it was really unfortunate because it was once such a fabulous culture. And that was one of the reasons why I joined. And then, to your point, in the snap of a finger, it can change overnight. And, really, that's what happened. And I don't want to be associated or work for an organization that is going to have that kind of pressure and demand on their employees when they have proven themselves and they have committed and they have made an impact, right? And they have performed at a very high level. I'm not going to work for, a
No.
leadership team that all of a sudden lets that go out the door and all they care about is themselves, right? And how they look and numbers and revenue. That's it. And so, really, as you and I both know too, um, a job becomes just a job and you become just a number. It's so sad, but that's what the reality is. That's it, you know?
It's it's painful to see. It's painful to see. However, I'm an optimist
I am
deep
too. You know I
down.
am
And
too.
that's why this podcast exists, because I think that by talking about these experiences
Yes,
rather than having this sort of artificial harmony and being like, okay, you know what, just let it go, move on, get a
Yep,
new job, don't deal with people like that, just sort of stay positive, stay the course,
totally.
of course we want to all stay positive, stay the course, but we're human. We make mistakes,
Hmm.
either side of the coin, whatever pair of shoes that you're in, it's complicated. It's tough. It's scary. Economies, like things are falling apart
Yeah,
and rebuilding
influx.
themselves
Yes. Oh, it's
all around
crazy
us. And
right now. Yeah.
it's so much. So empathy going out to everybody out there who's struggling, because there's so many in this time.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that we can't look back on these experiences and learn something from them and be better because of them, because we all make mistakes.
Of
I've definitely
course.
I've
T-
definitely had shitty meetings where I said
Totally.
where I had to fire somebody or let somebody go, and I did not do it in the right way. And maybe it had nothing to do with them. It was just, I was trying to cover my own ass. And as an entrepreneur who's had to answer to investors, I know how that feels. It's a tough place to be. But I tell myself never again will I put profit over people. And in my
Same.
20 years of being in startups, I will stick to that. So how, Genna, how, based on this experience, and what are you going to take from this moving forward? What kind of manager are you going to be? What kind of organization are you going to work for or start up yourself? And where's the next step here? Where's the
The
light at the
silver,
end of the
yeah, the
tunnel?
silver lining. Honestly, I mean, hey, I truly believe in practicing what you're preaching, right? Do what you say what you mean. You know this about me, and honestly, that experience just was such an eye opener. And it's, you grow and you learn and you, go, hey, gosh, if that would have happened so differently, you know, hey, maybe I'd still be there today if it was just like a more of an open communication, like, hey, I want to check in with you, wanted to give you a heads up. I'm going to put some time on your calendar. There was some feedback shared and, I'd like to walk through that with you. It could have been a completely different outcome
Mm.
and experience giving constructive feedback. So that said, what will I do, going forward is, stand behind what I have shared with you today. You have to think before you react. It is a very important skill to learn. And trust me, I have reacted before, thinking things through. No one's perfect. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. But if you make a mistake, you own it and you take accountability. Okay. That is a real big deal. And that can change the trajectory of that relationship. If you just go, you know what? I overreacted. I didn't take time to think about it and just be transparent and real. People want authenticity. And so I would have thought about it, what was shared with me. I would have gotten all the facts. I would have taken the time to kind of think about what I was going to share. Okay. And then I would reach out to, or I will, going forward, if I am faced with a situation where, feedback is shared with me and then I ultimately have to share it with my team, then I will, give the heads up and say, hey, want to keep open communication. Something was shared with me. I'd like to talk to you about it. Let's walk through it. And I'm going to put some time on the calendar. Does that sound good to you? You have to treat people like adults. This isn't a game. This isn't a power trip. This is life. And people take, you know, constructive feedback seriously. And it's very, I think in a general sense, it's really scary when you hear, oh gosh, feedback was shared. Whether positive or negative, you still get like a little bit of like, oh, I don't know. What is it going to be? And so you just have to be careful and mindful of that's a natural human reaction. And to your point, this isn't artificial. This is not, we are human beings and we need to be treated as such. Now, I'm not suggesting coddling and petting. No. Honestly, I'm suggesting be a professional. Treat each other with respect, with transparency, and and make sure that it is clear that we're adults and that's it. And I think that's my takeaway from that is I will not do something like that to my team. I just won't do it because of just what I went through, the stress and the anxiety, and then how it spilled into my personal life with my family because I was just so caught off guard and off my game and just couldn't believe it. And I don't think that that is fair to do to anyone. Okay. And so that's, I would, again, I'm going to stand by what I believe in terms of core values and how you treat people. And that I would be the same peer to peer, to upper management, to leadership, to C-suite, to my team, and my friends. I mean, it's a value oriented approach. And I really believe in that. And I feel like, hey, this is like old school, but honey gets you further, okay, in life. Bottom line.
Girl, I always say that honey gets the bees. And it's
Honey
not that
gets
you
the
need to
bees.
be, it's not like you said, it's not that you need to coddle. It's not that you need
No.
to, be fake or,
No,
be
because-
nice when you shouldn't be nice.
Right.
It's being, it's
Real.
It's, you know what? It's understanding that everyone has their stuff. Everyone's
Yes.
dealing with shit. Let's just be
100%.
real. No
You never
matter
know.
who you are.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's dealing with something. So before we go out and say, you know what, like this person intentionally did this to, screw something up or, whatever.
Yes.
Before we point the finger.
Exactly.
We need to, like you said, we need to take a pause. And one of the things that I've learned actually in the last few years is that when things get hot or when I get upset or hurt feelings, because I'm a really sensitive person,
Yep.
although the first half of my life I spent running away from conflict. The second half, now I'm running towards it because I think that conflict in its healthy form is there's nothing that's helped me grow more, right, than those experiences.
Totally.
But when it comes down to it, we need to realize that, there's no such thing as separating business and personal. Who we are, it's going to show up. It's going to show up in one way or the other. And if we have to be a different person at home than we are at work, we're going to be exhausted eventually. There's no way to do that sustainably for a long period of time. So identify your core values. What matters most to you? And not just like, stupid, like core values from a company on a webpage. Respect.
No, this is your own
responsibility.
Yes.
Real,
I mean, how many times? Yes.
What matters?
No, it's to you.
How do I like to be treated?
Yes. Again, do what you say what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Bottom line. And that's another thing that you brought up a good point, and I really believe this in my heart of hearts as well, is that would be the other thing. If you're leading a team, okay, or an organization, okay, or a project, okay, it is very important to be mindful of all the players that are supporting you and helping you and, working towards the same end goal. And if feedback comes up, be mindful that when you do have that conversation, after you give them a heads up and let them know that you want to share it, you want to walk it through, give them a chance to tell their side before you start jumping to conclusions and accusing. I'm telling you, it happens more than we want to believe. It's, that person is to blame, without getting any facts and taking the time to learn and understand what took place. So you have to allow the other person actually to do more of the talking than you, period. And you learn so much. And it could be I'm going through it. I've got some external, challenges, and it's, my mind is somewhere else. Hey, can you help me? I need to maybe we need to figure out a new schedule. Maybe we need to take back some responsibilities, whatever it may be. It could be that, or it could just be, hey, wait a minute, hold on. Wait, there's all these things that I was doing. Did you take note of that? I'm happy to walk through it with you. Again, it could be so many different things, but you have to allow the other person to talk, especially when you're sharing feedback. So that's another.
Number one, what I'm hearing, be curious.
Yes.
Ask questions.
Yes.
Number two, be transparent, be authentic. Say what you mean. Say what you mean what you say.
Exactly.
And do what you say.
Yes.
And number three, be nice.
Be nice.
Just be nice. And if you're not nice, you might end up on Bad Meetings podcast.
Exactly. And thank God I'm nice and you're nice. Okay. That's the foundation here between you and I.
Oh, I love it. This was such a valuable conversation, Genna. As always, I'm so inspired by you and our talks, and I always learn so much from you. And thank you for your vulnerability, your authenticity. It's not easy to share. And, I've had a few recordings so far, but, we're just at the beginning of this Bad Meetings journey. And, it's been a bit of an exploration for me in encouraging people to share.
Totally.
And it's not as easy as I expected. The concept, people love it, people like it, but it's so hard to look back on our experiences and say, what could have gone better, really? And rather than, oh, okay, it's over. That could have, that was a waste of time, whatever. Let's move on.
Totally.
Let's talk about it.
Totally. Because we all go through it. We all go through something like this, regardless if you're at the top of your game or not. It doesn't matter. We all have, room to grow and learn, and it's okay to be vulnerable and share these things, and I actually find that it's good to let it out and not hold on to it. And learn and grow from it and move forward and be the best person that you can be and continue to evolve as a person, So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Such valuable advice. Thank you so much, Genna. And if there's any recommendations or resources that you have to share to help people become more empathetic managers, send that over to me. I'm going to put it in the show notes so that we can guide people to some resources. One that I have is Difficult Conversations,
Yes.
which is my Bible
Yes.
when it comes to tough discussions like this. So that one for sure, that's number one. And then are there any off the top of your head, Genna, that you can recommend right now?
Let me think about it because I want to be thoughtful going to my,
totally.
My core value. Let me think about it, but yes, I'll definitely share some. I would say that would have been my first thing to tee up to is having difficult conversations and how to kind of organize that and approach it. It's challenging. But let me think about some other resources and I'll be happy to share. And just so you know, you inspire me all the time as well. So love you, girl. Thanks for having me.
Love you too, doll. Thank you so much. And we will bring you back definitely because there are a few stories from our past,
we got some good ones
that we need to dig up from back in the day. So we'll be on again. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please comment, please like, please subscribe. So thank you so much.
Thank you.